Commentary Booth is a show for media lovers by media lovers just like you. If you want to support the show, go to pariomagazine.com.au. Welcome to the Commentary Booth, where we watch and, you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator, Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by a teacher and travel blogger who lists their favourite movie as Fight Club and favourite TV show as Band of Brothers. Welcome to the show, Odin's favourite co-host, Buddy McClelland.
Thank you for having me back.
So how's things treating you? Enjoying back at school?
Pretty good. Back at school, wet, rainy, just trying to survive the floods at the moment. Again, I think the last time I spoke to you, I was trying to survive floods. So
I know.
It hasn't stopped.
I went to get my flu vax.
Higher and higher up my 9-story building, but other than that, I think I'm okay.
I know, this rain just won't go away. I went to get my flu vax today, driving along Warragee Road. Not sure if the road even exists anymore. It's just holes and patches of tarmac. It's just gross.
Yeah, that's the scary thing now when you drive. It's like it used to be roads, and they were sketchy roads already, but now they're just roads with random giant holes that pop out of them.
Yeah, and this wasn't like 1 or 2 holes. There were like 10 or 20 meter patches that were just covered in holes. It was like, how do I avoid all of these? I just had to slow right down and just like zigzagging through this bit of road. I was like, oh God.
To be fair, Warragee Road is built on a swamp.
And it's always been a crap road. So, but
maybe they can make it better now.
Flu vaxxed up, so one more needle down.
How are you feeling? Is it like just like the COVID thing?
So far, nothing. Totally fine. But I did only get it this morning, so maybe tomorrow, right before I go to Melbourne, I'm going to feel like crap. We'll find out.
Yeah, you'll turn into a pumpkin before you wake up.
Oh, and then give it another week or two and I'll go and get COVID 4.
COVID vaccine 4, not COVID 4.
Yeah, COVID vaccine 4. I don't want to catch COVID once, let alone 4 times.
So if you get COVID 4 times, you don't need any more vaccines. Like, that's it. You've had 4, yeah. You're good. You
would hope so. Somehow you just won't catch it either. Like,
don't say that. I went over for breakfast with someone the other day. They served us food and we hung out there for a couple of hours. And then 2 days later, I got a text saying, so we both have COVID now. So I've just been like ducking and dodging and weaving for, I don't know, the best part of 2.5 years.
And somehow
I'm at the point where I really want to say I'm untouchable, but I'm really certain as soon as I say that, COVID.
Or maybe you just like Mr. Burns and just like can't catch something, but then once you do, you're just going to fall in a heap. All of the bugs are just going to rush in at once.
Don't say that. Look, I like to think I've got the genetic predisposition to not get it, or at the very minimum, I've taught long enough now in special education to have caught most things. So hopefully it's one of those two.
Either that or maybe you like had it super early on and had no symptoms and then just got away with getting the immunity from that.
Yeah, who knows? I am very germophobic at the best of times, though, so I doubt it.
That's true. Not going to go around licking people with COVID just for fun?
Nah, I was like wanting to wear masks before it was a thing.
Yeah, I was wearing masks before they were mandatory.
Yeah. Now people don't judge me so bad.
That is very true.
And they can't see my face when I judge them.
That's the best part about a mask. If someone tries to talk to you, like, oh, I don't know who you are, just walk off.
Pretend you don't recognize people at Woolies.
Yeah, I don't recognize this part of your face. Especially you wearing a hat and a mask. It's like, oh,
it's because sometimes I even wore sunnies and it was like a whole vibe.
You're going to go in and start robbing banks now, are you?
I guess you could. Like you can't really have those signs on the doors anymore of like, take off all face coverings. It's not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I never thought of that. I wonder if there have been... I wonder if there have been more like robberies because people are just like, I got a mask on, you can't do nothing.
It must have been weird for like 7-Eleven. They would have gone from like signs that say "take off your mask" to directly switching it with a sign that says "put on your mask."
Yeah, yeah, very weird.
Yeah.
No. And the other day sent you to a movie. Did you get there fine? You look like you made it.
Which movie was that one?
Downton. You managed to
Oh yeah,
find your way there.
I found my way there. There was no way I was missing Downton. Like if I had to get horse and buggy and be taken there by that, I would have got to Downton. It was amazing. Downton is like one of those things that I thought I would hate, and my wife Anne is absolutely in love with it. And I think I kind of got sucked in. I heard the theme song, got sucked into it a little bit, and it's just one of those shows that I know we're going to talk about like the Northman shortly, but in a world where people are having their noses chopped off, and then a sword shoved through the hole where your nose used to be, it's a bit of a gap where you need something that is just, oh my God, they sat at the wrong seat at the table, or what happened to the best silverware, or it's just a level of drama that is engaging but isn't crazy. And sometimes in a world at the moment, like with the COVID and with the violence and stuff, it's just nice.
You just want nice, like, low-level drama, not life or death drama.
Yeah, I guess they make the low-level drama feel like life or death. And I guess sometimes in it there is life and death, but it's very rare. But yeah, it was nice, and it was very thankful that we got to go. So thank you.
No worries. You managed to remember to drive past the bullets before you turned?
We actually went the wrong way. Like it took us, so we didn't go the wrong way, but it took us in the back entrance of there. I was like, no, we need to go past these giant, crazy, stupid bullets, but it took us in the back road. So we got there in the end anyway.
No, at least you made it.
Made it. I wasn't going to miss a tower of cupcakes for the world.
And as you mentioned, we're covering a movie and a new TV show. First up, the Viking epic by Robert Eggers, and then we'll dive into, like, what is it, a true story drama that was kind of comedic.
Drama miniseries. I think it was actually based off a podcast. But yeah. So
first up, The Northman, the new film by Robert Eggers, who previously did The Witch and The Lighthouse. Had you seen either of those movies before going into this one?
No. So Robert Eggers was a bit of a slap in the face for me. I wasn't sure what I was in for, and I didn't expect that.
Yeah, if you don't know his style, this movie is very different, kind of somewhat jarring at times, but it is very much a Robert Eggers movie with lots of like historical context woven in, but then all of the supernatural mysticism as well that can be a little bit weird and out there at times.
When I saw Willem Dafoe dressed as like a shaman getting a man and a child to bark like dogs and drink a little saucer of blood and bones, I probably knew I was in for something at that point.
Yeah, unless they hit you with that early. They don't string you along as this is this really serious historical drama, and then at the end be like, oh yeah, now there's all this weird Viking supernatural mysticism stuff. They're kind of like, no, we're diving right into that. We're going to have these people drink this weird potion and bark and fart and burp and prove that they're real men, apparently.
To be fair to it though, like I think for me going into it, I'm someone that, like I said with the Downton thing, I like to be almost spoon-fed, almost like the storylines and things, and I don't generally watch things that are a bit arty. It kind of turns me away, and I was sitting there watching that about 15 minutes or into the start of the film, wondering how I was going to get through the rest of it. But by the end of the film, really found myself looking past the arty stuff, or even getting sucked into the arty stuff and enjoying it.
Yeah, thankfully, like, it does have those arty out there moments, but a lot of the movie is just a straightforward Viking revenge story, with the main character Amleth, played by Alexander Skarsgård, or basically just him, watches his father get murdered by his uncle, and then the rest of the movie is him trying to survive and then eventually make his way back to, was it avenge you father, save you mother, kill you uncle?
Kill you, uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it. Like it, to me, it seemed like a bit of a Viking version of Braveheart almost. Even down to having the years and things pop up and the locations and stuff. It was nice to have that historical element to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I enjoyed it.
I did feel it was very, from sort of my limited knowledge of Vikings and watching the show Vikings, it did feel very sort of true to Viking lore and mythology. What did you think of sort of the character progression of Amleth going from this little boy who bites the nose off someone in the first like 5 minutes, and then he escapes, becomes the bear wolf, and then like really sort of personifies that when he is sacking and pillaging villages, wandering around menacingly.
Yeah, I think for me, like I said, the further the movie got on, the more I really sort of got sucked into it, to the point where I think by the time we left the movie, you and I were walking out, and all I wanted to do was stand there and go and pretend I was a Viking. So it's probably a good sign that I was really into it by the end of it. But I think that's probably a credit to the way they developed his character, that it pulled me further and further in through the storyline. There was some really good little plot twists in there without giving anything away that kept me interested in it. And I think even the way that was Skarsgård acted it, that I think the way when he moves into that bear, he actually looks like physically looks like a bear, the way he kind of gets his neck forward, and he really leans into the mythology and the animalistic nature of it. And that really sold it to me and really got me sort of sucked into it. It was an incredibly violent movie. It's not something for people that I think can't handle that and deal with bodies being chopped up and put into the shape of horses and all sorts of crazy stuff. But I guess not that you would know exactly what happened in that time, but at the time it was a very violent period. So yeah, I think the way the character progressed kind of pulled me further and further in, and that was a credit to the way they did it.
Yeah, like it was violent, but it was nowhere near as violent as I expected it to be based on the trailer. Like I expected a lot more in your face swords going into people's skulls and chests and stuff, where a lot of that is kind of in the background or off screen. Like they play it up where you're about to see this person get murdered and then it'll cut away to something else, or the camera will pan around away from it so you don't kind of see it full bore often. But then when you do see it, like you mentioned, when the sword goes through old mate's former nose,
slowly, like, too.
This is intense. This is a really big moment.
Yeah, I think to be fair, if they had have just left all the violence directly on the screen, it would have taken away from the story. So it was a very good idea, I think, to get away from that.
Yep.
To be fair, some of the violence in the background is pretty triggering, I would assume, for some people. I mean, there was a stage where they put all of the children of the village into a hut, locked them in there and set them on fire. So I mean, it's not to say that the violence off the screen isn't high impact as well. So yeah, trigger warning.
Yeah, I guess if you're going in to watch a Viking epic, you kind of are expecting it to be quite violent though, so don't be overly shocked by that. But like you mentioned, the way Alexander Skarsgård walks around when they are ransacking villages and stuff, he's not a guy you want to step around the corner of a hut and run into. Like, he looks so scary.
Yeah. Like I said, he looks like a bear, he acts like a bear, he rips people's faces off like a bear. It's pretty intense.
And sort of, who else was in the cast? Anya Taylor-Joy does a great job as the sort of side character who kind of draws the emotional weight out of Amleth as well. Like, I think without that character, it would have just been a very straightforward murder sequence of, okay, I'm going to kill this guy, now I'm going to move on and kill this person. Whereas with her in there is that sort of family and emotion that kind of comes through in the story, which
Yeah, I
was
think
really important.
it creates that depth. Like, I don't think if you have him without that, you don't see any depth to the character that you can see. He can only be a killing machine and a bear, but to see him have family and have the idea of what he's going to do with her and wanting to save her, and even to that end, saving the other people that were slaves at one point, and he wasn't just in the interest of revenge the entire time. It was, yeah, it added depth to it that it probably needed.
What did you think of Nicole Kidman as his mother?
I think I said it to you on the day. Like, Nicole Kidman is almost getting typecast now, just as the weird old lady. Like, it was strange, but I feel like there's been a few times that I've seen her do that strange, similar character. I had a bit of a hard time with her acting as a Scandinavian person. Obviously, being Australian and knowing Nicole from that context, it's a bit hard to watch her like that because you're like, yeah, right, I know you're Australian.
And the accent wasn't great.
No, and it's not an easy accent to fake, I don't think. Like, I wouldn't even try to do it.
No.
But I mean, she did. Again, I guess you can judge the quality of the acting and the quality of the character by how you feel in the times. And there were times that I wanted to save her, and there were times that I didn't think she deserved to be saved, and a lot of stuff. So I guess to that end, that she did a good job.
Yeah, the story definitely does sort of pull you in multiple directions with the motivations behind her character. You're kind of like, yeah, we need to save this person. And then at one point it's like, ew, screw you. Like,
Yeah,
you're an evil human being. Visually as well, what an incredible movie to watch. Like, I feel like if you're going to watch this movie, it needs to be seen in a cinema. Like, don't wait for this one to hit a streaming service to get the full effect of it unless you have a giant high quality 4K TV when it finally arrives on a streaming service.
yeah. I mean, I think if you go to Iceland, and it's kind of heartbreaking for me a little bit because we were supposed to go and do like a Scandinavian honeymoon after we got married, but it got cancelled because of COVID. And it just really fired me up after seeing a lot of that to want to get back and try and visit places like Iceland, and just the contrast of the fire and ice that it has, the volcanoes and the glaciers and things happening, and just the epic wide open scenery. I think they made good use of that. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, if you're going to watch it, it would be a lot better on a big screen.
Yep. Yeah, like that. There's one particular scene where they're in the thermal baths with the big glacier behind them in the background. I was like, that is such a cool shot. And like, that sells you on wanting to go to Iceland. Looks
Yeah,
so cool.
I think even to that end, when you're talking about the film in the context of a cinema, I think it's sort of like one of the VMAX cinemas, and I just find, especially in the context of a Viking, the heavy kind of drum lines and the real Viking sound to it, and the kind of guttural screams and things they do. I think the sound quality of the film's quite good as well, and it does a big part in drawing you in.
Yep. Especially in some of the ritual sequences, like that's where the real like thudding drums really hit hard, and the dancing is a bit strange.
Yeah, I think dancing around naked in the forest is probably something to leave off the bucket list, but no, it was a different time. I'm not going to judge it.
Yeah, Viking mythology is very strange at times, but very interesting to watch. Like, have you watched the Viking show as well?
I have. I haven't finished the whole entire series, but yeah, I've watched a bit of it.
Yeah, I'm currently one season in, and it is such a cool like time period that is now getting like tapped a lot for things. Like, we've got this Vikings, obviously. The recent Assassin's Creed was Vikings. Like,
Valhalla, yeah.
Yeah, heaps of stuff. God of War is Viking.
I forgot to mention to you when we went to the premiere to the screener, sorry, of Downton, that it was actually sponsored by Viking Cruises, which was a really weird thing for me, going from a Viking film like Northman to then go into this. And the only ad they played before the screening of the film was a Scandinavian man who obviously ran the company. and he was telling you to go on Viking cruises, and we're going to be the best cruise company, and this is where we can take you and cruise with the Vikings. And all I could think about was being on a ship with somebody banging a drum, yelling at me to row faster. I was like, I don't want to do that.
That doesn't sound like a good cruise at all. What are you talking about?
Not good at all.
That also makes me think like maybe didn't target the correct movie there. Cruises have an older demographic, but it's Viking cruises. Why not sponsor the Viking movie?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the places they were going, it was offering a cruise to go and see the location where Downton's shot. And it was like that old school river cruise thing. In terms of the actual service they provide, it's perfect. But in terms of the branding, no.
Bit off.
Way off.
And I looked at some random sort of stats and trivia about this movie. Apparently they've been trying to make this for a while. Alexander Skarsgård and Eggers basically decided they had a conversation. They're like, we want to work on something together. Skarsgård has been wanting to make a Viking movie for years. And Eggers was like, you know what? I'm going to do that as my third movie and you're going to be the lead character. And this is how this movie essentially came about. The budget is huge. They spent between $70 and $90 million. And in the opening weekend, they made 24.9 million. So little bit of a way to go there, which could be an issue considering as Doctor Strange is out in like a week's time.
Yeah, the film's kind of still lagging on their opening weekends though, with not many people going to the cinemas.
Some are, but like Spider-Man was massive. It was, I think, the biggest film in like 3 years. Something else came out recently that was huge. And yeah, I think this one, had really high hopes, but because it is that more arty movie, I don't know if it's going to have that high peak. I feel like it could have a longer tail though, where people start to go and see it later when Doctor Strange is out and all the mainstream crowd are going to that. All the arty people are going to be like, I don't want to see that. I'm going to go watch this instead.
I would take this film over Doctor Strange 7 days out of the week. I haven't
Really?
seen Doctor Strange yet, but we don't need a wizard. We need Vikings.
Doctor Strange looks like it's going to break my head when I see that movie.
Exactly. I don't need that. Like I said to you, like I don't need big drama. I just need nice things.
I wouldn't exactly call Northman nice things. We've got...
I'll just... Look, better than having my brain broken by the multiverse.
Very true. But yeah. The Northman...
Depends whose side you're on. If you're on his side, it's nice.
Yeah. If you're on the receiving end of his vengeance, not so good.
Don't trade in slaves, you'll be fine.
Very true. And like we mentioned with the story, it was very like... Obviously very inspired by Hamlet as well. Like, son avenging his father, but also like... And then Hamlet is also an inspiration for Lion King, so it's kind of like Viking Lion King.
Yeah, I didn't know it was inspired by Hamlet.
Yeah. Lion King is legitimately just Hamlet as a kid's movie with lions. And then this movie is Hamlet, but with Vikings and nose biting.
Right. A lot of nose biting. Oh, I just remember the part where his nose is bitten off, but he still blows snot out of the hole.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's some moments that just bore into your brain. You're like, well, I'm never forgetting that moment.
Oh yeah. Get that man a Kleenex.
Definitely enjoyed The Northman. Definitely recommend seeing it in the cinemas if you can, but it'll still be worth checking out at home once it does arrive.
Yeah, I think so. As long as you go into it knowing that it's, I guess that, like you said, the arty style of film, but it's worth it. Like for me, it's worth it. I know some people are right up that alley, but yeah, for people that aren't necessarily into films that have that art style to it, I still think it's worth watching.
Yeah, I would say if you're on the fence about this one, maybe watch The Witch at home first, which is, I think, currently streaming on Amazon in Australia. So watch that. If you enjoy that, then go and watch The Northman. if you don't enjoy The Witch, don't go and see The Northman because you won't enjoy it. Like, it's very much similar to The Witch. And then the second thing we watched was a recommendation from you, the new Apple TV Plus drama mini series based on true events, WeCrashed. How did you come across this one?
It's just one of those things that Apple TV Plus were really pushing. And then I think really what got us across the line to start it, because I'd never even really heard of the brand or the company We Work, which is what WeCrashed is based on. But having Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway play the two lead roles, particularly Anne Hathaway, really pushed us across the line to give it a go. And then once we started to watch it, it's an 8-part miniseries. And once we started to kind of get into the story of something that we'd never really heard of, and how it kind of rose to power and crashed at the end, I guess, it really sucked us in.
Oh yeah, like it's another one of those Apple shows where you hit play thinking, oh, I'll watch one episode and see what this is like, and then the next thing you know, you've watched 3 episodes and it's midnight and you're like, oh well, I probably should go to bed. But I want to keep watching more. Like, so compelling. I was glad I waited till the entire season was out.
Yeah. I think for me, the storyline, and for people that don't know what happened, it follows. So Jared Leto plays a man called Adam Newman, who is a desperate entrepreneur that's trying to come up with a bunch of ideas. I think he had knee pads for babies and a bunch of other random stuff, high heels that fold down that ended up stabbing a lady in the foot. And it follows him and the love story that he ended up having with Rebecca Paltrow, which is actually in real life Gwyneth Paltrow's cousin. And how he is just desperate to prove to her that he is going to come up with some great idea, and the confidence that he has to really stick with it and bring about this startup company that is basically just an office space sharing company. And I think at the height of its existence, he went from having absolutely nothing and a bunch of knee pads for babies boxes that he never sold to a company valued, to be fair, I think he valued it, but valued at $47 billion.
Yeah, like it was ridiculous. I knew the concept of WeWork. I can't remember if I heard the name, but I knew the idea of shared co-working spaces like this. And yeah, he just builds this company out of nothing, just keeps going after investor after investor after investor, gets it up to $47 billion, which just seems exorbitant. And yeah, just chases money so that he can, like, I think, what did he get, like 8 million at the start, and then got a bit more, and then thought, okay, we've built this one location, and he just kept going after more money to like expand super quickly without sort of establishing the brand. Like, he just wanted to be an overnight success essentially. Just, if we expand super quick, eventually we take over the market and we just win that way. And it's kind of like, it's not exactly how it works. And they keep referencing Facebook and Amazon as like their inspirations and models for how to do business. And it's like, yeah, Facebook made no money for years. Amazon lost money for decades. Netflix did the same. Like, they lost money for years and years before they eventually made any money. And he kind of was just following that same model of spend $2 million a day to expand, buy locations and rent locations, and pay double whatever it costs to rent these locations or do construction, because once we get it all built, then we don't have to spend any more money and we just win that way. And I was like, not exactly, and it obviously bit them in the butt at the end.
Well, it did, but I mean, they say we crashed, and I think before I get into the end part of it, I think just to go back to the storyline that they have with it, I think the love story really sucked me in between the two of them, and the way that confidence that people, even like when you're talking about the Amazons and the Facebooks, and that confidence that they have to keep rolling with it and believe in themselves. And I think that's the thing that breaks those sorts of people apart from the rest of us in the world, that given the little hurdles, I know me for a person, I'd be like, okay, well, this isn't working. I'll just go back to being a teacher or whatever might happen. But they face these hurdles and they're in such a belief of what they want and their idea that they have that they stick with it. And I think for him to have Rebecca, who he ended up marrying, stick with him through that and following her story of how hard it is to stick with somebody through that. I mean, I think they ended up getting a wedding present, which was to buy a house. He took the entire funding that he was supposed to buy a house with and pumped it straight into the business, which at the time is just insane. But in the end, works out so much better for them. So I think that story is what really kept it going. But then it gets to the point where you never really think about how hard it is to run a successful business, just in terms of not letting the money go to your head, because obviously they're riding around in helicopters and thinking that they're all these wonderful people.
Private
but
jets.
even just the little slip ups that they have, like where Rebecca accidentally says that she thinks her position is to help him.
Mhm.
And then that becomes a gender role issue and how they have to try and recover from that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of little intricacies and a few complexities there that keep the story a bit more entertaining than just the concept of they made a business, it was good, it sucked, the end. I think they really did a good job of following that. I think my only criticism, I think Anne Hathaway was brilliant in that. She did a good job of playing that character and the highs and lows that it had. My only issue with Jared Leto was I think he overdoes the Israeli accent a little bit. And I think he sounds a bit like Gru out of Despicable Me at times. And I had a hard time sticking with it. But other than that, I think it was quite good. And it gets to the end and you kind of think, well, we crashed, but it sucked me in. I don't know if the same thing happened to you, but I ended up looking up how much is he still worth. Did you look up how much he's still worth?
Yep. Yeah, he's still worth over $1
billion.
Yeah, he's still worth heaps.
I mean, that's not, he crashed, but I mean, if I crash and I land at $2.5 billion, I'm not too unhappy.
Yeah, that's very true. Having just watched Jared Leto in Morbius, this is a much better performance despite the over-accentuated accent at times. But it kind of just, the show highlighted to me the major flaw in him as an actor. Like when he gets a character like this where he can really sink his teeth into and he puts all of his effort behind the character, it's so much better and more compelling to watch. Whereas when it was something like Morbius, which was just standard comic fare, he kind of just, it feels kind of like he half-asses it and it just doesn't work. Like it just feels crap. Whereas this one felt really good. Anne Hathaway felt really good. Like you mentioned, there's times where you're rooting for the couple and then you sort of start to see maybe Adam Newman is kind of just a scam artist.
Yeah.
Despite all of the confidence that he has, like, I'm going to make this work.
Sociopathic.
And the charisma that he has, like he can sell he could bloody sell ice to Eskimos at this point. And he manages to get all these people to invest billions of dollars with no real like financial backing or plan. Like he kind of just wings everything and like just betting on black, and it just keeps coming up black, coming up black, coming up black. And then one time it hits red and he's like, oh, what do I do?
It goes to show you how far confidence can get people in life. And I think it does a good job of that.
Yep. I did laugh though when it gets to a point where they're showing how much the business is losing and it's just like up and down. $1.5 million a day, 1.2, 1.8, 2.1 million a day. Like, how are you spending $2 million a day? What are you doing? Yeah. Insanity.
And just as a concept, it's still obviously, we drove past the other day and I saw a couple of office sharing spaces and things that are still going. And when I looked at it, I think it was still something like 45 million square feet of office space is still owned and used by WeWork. So, I mean, obviously as a business, it's still operating and running. So, yeah, it must be hard though. Like you do feel for him when it gets taken away from him at the end of the story, and to have your child taken away by a board of, I guess, executives that you've put in there to help you run it, and then they kick you out, must just be absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, and that last episode where they're just like, him and the major investor SoftBank are kind of just having a standoff over the figure when they're throwing out these massive payout figures, and he's like, nah, and just hangs up the phone. And even Rebecca's like, what do we do if they don't ring back? And he's just so confident, like, he'll ring back. They'll make another offer. It's like, gee, I don't know if I could have turned down, was it like $5 billion or something? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I did find it crazy that with the way his business strategy was, they just got to a point where they were so bloated with expenses that they couldn't even afford to fire people because the severance packages would have been too high that they couldn't have covered the severance. And it's like, ooh, we're not in a good spot when we can't even afford to fire people.
Yeah.
And yeah, when they went public, valuation $47 billion. It dropped to $10 billion. All the employees that had share options just essentially got nothing. So they did all this work for low pay or no pay with share options as their payment. And then the share options ended up being worth less than the paper they were written on. And then I looked up, yeah, WeWork still exists. It eventually went public in October last year at a valuation of $9 million, which was $9 billion, $38 million less than its peak. Like, big drop. And then Adam's payout in that final episode, also ridiculous. They paid him out $1.7 billion, which was split as $970 million for his remaining shares, a $185 million consulting fee, $500 million to repay all of his personal loans that he'd taken out against his shares, and then he's currently still on a $46 million annual consultancy salary.
Must be tough.
What a tough life. Just getting paid $46 million to stay away.
Yeah. You can pay me less and I'll do that.
You could pay me, yeah, 1/46th of that and I'll stay away from any company you want me to. But yeah, like we said, this is another one of those shows where Apple TV prove that they produce high quality content that you just can't stop watching. Like last week, I spoke to Blake about Severance, which is again the same thing where I was glad I waited until the full season was out, because once I hit play, every episode I was like, I need to watch the next one. I need to watch the next one. Like I just couldn't stop watching. And after you told me to watch this, I think I powered through the entire season in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the worst problem that you're having with the streaming service is that you're like, oh, I'm going to have to wait for it all to come out because I just want to binge watch it. Like, that is not a problem that I have with, to be fair, like Netflix is copying it a lot at the moment, but that is definitely not a problem I have with a bunch of Netflix content. Usually the problem is that I start it and can't stick with it because I just don't value it and I don't feel like it's worth my time. So this is, yeah, like you're right. It's another really well-produced, well cast, well acted series. And I think I almost hope that they could do a few more of these. Like it's a kind of a new category of a mini series for me, I guess, where you don't really see many business-based stories following startups that you can get into the characters and that. I wouldn't mind watching more, rather than, I guess the last time we talked about sort of crime docu-series and crime mini-series. I wouldn't mind seeing more business-based mini-series, seeing people's rises and falls.
Yeah, like sometimes truth is better than fiction. Like this was such a compelling story, even though you knew, like, WeCrashed, like, I get it's a really compelling, catchy title, but it does kind of give away the ending. But even though you know where it's going to go to, you still have to watch just to find out how the heck did we get to this point where a $47 billion company is now essentially worthless.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, the love story and the other parts to it, I think it gives you a lot more insight into the story rather than just the complete business element. So yeah, definitely a recommend for me. I liked it.
Yeah, it was a great pick. Good choice. I did laugh that at the start when he's like trying to work out what business he's going to do as this serial entrepreneur that he keeps calling himself. His first idea is like co-living spaces. Now that he's now that he's been kicked out of WeWork, apparently that's what he's doing now. He's made a company where he's going to make a co-living space. I'm like, the way it was described at the start of this show, no, I don't want to clean a public bathroom.
Yeah. Well, you don't know though. That's the thing. It's wild to think, and that's what really captures my imagination with this story, and captures my imagination in that category, is that it's just people that had good ideas, and then they just, like the people for Uber, everybody has a car. Why don't we just share the cars? Why don't we think of that? Well, Airbnb, everybody has a house. Why don't we just share the house? Why didn't I think of that? Like, it's
if I'm going on holiday, I might as well have someone pay to use my house, and then that can pay for my holiday.
Yeah, and it's nicer. And I think this part now that I think we're getting to in life, where I guess there's a bit more transparency to people, and you can trust people, and you get these cool business ideas that are review based, so you know that you can't kind of just get stitched up. Yeah, it's exciting to see what people come up with, and it's exciting to see series based around what they come up with.
Yeah, like a co-working space, it does seem so like ridiculous when it was first sort of posed. I was like, why would anyone want to just pay to go and use a desk? But then, yeah, they talk about how like there's those collaboration opportunities, and the community aspect really takes it to that whole new level. The parties and stuff they had were pretty insane. Like,
yeah,
I read that the WeWork as it is now, they finally phased out free beer at all the locations.
Dude, I'm out.
And you know the scene where the beer tap gets left on in the show?
Yeah.
Apparently that was based on an actual event that happened at one of the locations, when somebody that was at the WeWork facility broke one of the beer taps and just didn't tell anyone, and it leaked overnight and eventually flooded the workspace below it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, tell someone you broke the beer tap. Yeah. Tell me, and I'll turn it off.
There's probably a good reason people don't get drunk at work. Like, you don't want to have the sex cupboard. Like, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, it was. It was a good like highlight of good business practices and bad business practices. Like,
yeah,
you don't want a sex closet. Maybe you don't need a free beer. Foosball table, pool table, the Harlem Shake every day.
Yeah,
that he just walks out of meetings to get involved in.
Yeah, like I said, really liked it, and another Apple TV series that was worth your time.
Yeah, I think Apple TV now, my go-to is just wait for the series, because the way they've been going, I don't want to start one, watch 2 episodes, and like, oh well, now I gotta wait a week. So frustrating.
Yeah.
All right. What is your top recommendation for the week?
Look, I know it's not part of our bigger podcast. If you're a Downton fan, you've got to see Downton: A New Era. It was well worth the trip to Sydney just to get an early viewing of that. But
so it wasn't the cupcakes that sold you on that one?
No, I was sold well after the cupcakes. You know what? I think both of them are really good this time. It's hard to put a line between them. I think just for ease of viewing, and because the whole series is already out, like you said, I'm going to stick with WeWork, just because you don't have to go down to the movies. But if you do get an opportunity to go to the movies and see Northman, go for it.
Yeah, see, so this is where we differ. You're saying watch WeWork because it's easy, you don't have to leave the house. I'm saying go and see Northman at the cinema while you still can, because WeWork's going to be there forever, essentially. I don't see Apple TV disappearing anytime soon, or them randomly pulling this off the service. So go and see Northman while it's still in the cinema, and then after you've done that, then you can trickle through WeWork at home.
What happens when you're a tired teacher and you can't get off the couch?
You can go to the movies next week during your strike.
I'm on strike. I'm striking. Let's not get political. Go to the movies.
Yep. Alrighty. Thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at JamYapsMedia and at Pario Magazine. And you can follow Buddy on Instagram at a.b_csee. The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the community support group level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Brian and June Hart, Blake Robinson, Rena Renee, Courtney Paulson, Darren Hatcliffe, Jackson Carr, and Tracy Apps.